Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the What a Hoot event, in which the Totek is added to the game, as well as the new legendary Chaz in the event key drop table. Of course, we still have the last week's Mythic as well in the Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest drop table for today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, all the way until Friday reset. And I'll be showing another team with this guy as well, which is pretty similar to one of them that I showed earlier. However, it is worth mentioning it again with like one slight tweak, as it is actually pretty quick, like pretty much as quick as Zugov, and can be a great alternative for it. And of course, we have Tower of Doom this week, which finally, it happens once every 11 weeks. But anyways, let's start getting into all that. So let's start from the Totek. It is an epic, so you get the Glory or the Arcanes for only 200 Glory each, so great time to be stocking up on brown yellow if you end up needing them to upgrade some things, and there's quite a few that are useful for it. First thing that comes to mind is a Gorgolfa tank, but as far as this thing is concerned, it gains a bunch of armor and barriers itself, and if a storm is active, it'll also barrier all other allies, so basically a 4 times barrier to your team. It reminds me a lot of Dragonian Monk, but without the mana accumulation. I still feel like in most situations Dragonian Monk will be stronger than this thing. However, this is a really good early game option for barriering. It also has a double 25% reduction, which is pretty cool, and if your team doesn't already have it, gets to summon a Light Storm at the start of battle. That not only helps himself, but can also end up helping other yellow allies, and given that he uses Strix and a Knight, particularly the Strix part, Strix are very yellow heavy, so it can end up benefiting a little bit there. So overall, it's an okay troop, basically an early game tank that's very situationally going to get used. As far as the event key drop table, it is pretty decent. It is a Strix week. The most noteworthy thing is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have a brand new legend that just came into the game, and is actually not bad. It is High Priestess Chaz, or however on earth you say that. The most noteworthy thing about this is that it conjures a Light Storm when its turn begins. Of course, this is a mechanic already exists. It's on Stormcaller. However, one nice thing about this now is you don't have to run Stormcaller necessarily now. You can run whatever hero class you want. So if you want like an Elementalist running with Perpetual Yellow Storm, that is possible now, or any other similar shenanigans that you want to do with it. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see exactly how this pans out. One other pretty big beneficiary of this, so I don't think I show any teams with it here, is Priest's hero class. It has double yellow, and normally it's just better to go Stormcaller for Perpetual Yellow rather than having a +2 yellow into your amount of mana accumulation. But now you can go +2 yellow on Priests while having this Storm, while it also counting as Divine. So you can even build into pure Divine. Biggest thing holding this back is yellow-purple, which is the exact same coloration of this Divine Ishbala, which makes it kind of clunky to do in a pure Divine team. However, it still has pretty good synergy. Ends up doing a pretty standard AoE into some boost ratio based on yellow. Also gets to bless all yellow allies, which of course in pure yellow teams is your entire team, which honestly isn't that bad. Reminds me a lot of that one blessing thing in the Underworld that could do kind of similar, except this one is more yellow based, whereas the other thing can be used in most teams for the most part, whereas this one's a particularly really all-in yellow related troop that you're pretty much only ever going to be using in pure yellow related situations, or 4 times yellow, either for yellow Tower of Doom, which we have this week, or yellow Guild War, yellow faction event, stuff like that. Pretty much anytime you're restricted on yellow, this thing definitely has some pretty high potential to be used, and I highly advise opening event keys for it. As far as everything in the drop table, or everything not in the drop table, the Sun is not in the drop table. It is in Vault keys, but is not in event keys. The 4 faction troops, obviously, from Stonesong Area, or from the Stonesong Area faction, they are not in the event key drop table. And the last one, though it is available this week, is Doom of Light. This is not in the event key drop table. However, you can get it from Tower of Doom. So what's kind of funny is every single thing that is not available is still available, just not specifically through event keys this week. Anyways, aside from that, everything else you see here is an event key drop table. The most noteworthy thing being, of course, Phoenicia. Phoenicia is among one of the strongest troops in the game. It has the highest single cast AoE damage due to its double damage when there is a firestorm, while also having a decent 1-to-1 boost ratio based on not only red gems but also burning enemies. While its final trait and traits in general are pretty underwhelming, the extra burn does still help give it a little bit extra damage, and yeah, it's just a really solid AoE option. I run it for probably every single daily, or every single day for the daily system. It's definitely a troop that you don't necessarily need early on in the game, but it's pretty high priority to eventually get later in the game, so worth considering. Quetzalma's average, this is kind of like a yellow spammer thing. It's kind of like Inferno King, but yellow spam instead of skull spam. And Zillo Pochli is one of the most useless mythics in the game. It's a Zugov alternative that, yeah, just isn't that good because, you just run Zugov. But yeah, Phoenicia, if you happen to get the RNG of the 1 in 3 chance on top of the ultra hard chance of even getting the mythic to begin with. I actually did get a Quetzalma when I was going for the legend, so I did end up getting one from it. though it wasn't a Phoenicia, but it was still a good one. As long as you don't get Zolopotchli, you'll be fine. Though even if you do, you can still use it for kingdom upgrading purposes, if nothing else, as this kingdom does reach 23 star as of this week, to be able to get those little bit of extra tribute and everything. It cannot go any further than that, so it just gets a little bit of extra tribute reward and tribute chance from having those extra 2 troops that end up coming today. It also makes it more likely to get the bonus, which if I'm not mistaken is armor? No, attack. Oh, okay, that's actually not that bad of a stat either. Maybe you can get an extra attack from getting a 10 star, 20 star, so if you want to hit those milestones, it'll be easier than ever to do so this week, given the multiple different ways that you can get stuff for the kingdom. Anyways, aside from that, we do have a Tower of Doom going on, so this happens once every 11 weeks in the current state of the game. Always comes in with a new weapon, and plays out the same way every single time. You'll also be able to get 2 things that you normally wouldn't be able to get. The Yellow Dooms, the Troop of the Doom. It's relatively a pointless troop that you're never really going to use, though it does have the invulnerable trait, though it's not really worth using for that. The main purpose of this thing is mostly just to have it upgrade to Kingdom. As I mentioned earlier, this is a Suncrest, so it gives an extra star to Suncrest, if nothing else. And we get a new weapon every single time. This weapon is a category that is really bad, though. You still want to get it for completionist purposes, though. I highly advise buying at minimum tier 4. Tier 6 is pretty good value just because of how rare these events come around. Getting more of these light scrolls are always pretty good to do, so worth considering there. But tier 4 is like the absolute minimum. It is 500 gems, so a little bit pricier compared to a minimum on a normal given event. However, I would advise it because trying to get a Doom weapon later is very annoying to do. And given that kingdoms are getting closer and closer to the point where multiple now have required you to own pretty much every weapon except a paid weapon in order to have it max, including Doom weapons, that does mean you do generally want to be picking these up as kingdoms are getting closer and closer to the threshold where they will require pretty much every weapon that resides there, so make sure to get them when you can for the easier amount of resources. Aside from that, the actual game mode plays as you normally would expect for Tower of Doom. You'll want to scout out with your guild what all the better rooms are, like Power Heroism, Luck, Haste, Fireball, and obviously the Unlock. You basically just go through the and only take the better rooms, scout it out by your guild. You want to go and complete up to floor 25, as in as soon as that says number 26, because the last reward that you get is from 25th completion. Every single time you end up clearing out one of these floors, you end up getting one of these scrolls, and it's definitely worth getting these, as they are very annoying to get by other means, and they very rarely come around. Of course, they added something a few patches ago when they did that Soulforge patch, and what was it, 6.1, 6.0? I think it was 6.1 when they did that Soulforge patch. However, they're still so hard to get, so whenever you can get them once every 11 weeks like they currently are, it is a good idea to stock up. Highest priority is to get the full AoE Doomskull weapons that do the full damage into Doomskull Convert. Second highest priority, of course, is the books. You've probably seen them in Guild War before if you're later in the game. They're very devastating. I would say they're second priority, mostly because the other one you tend to use more often. You probably see books more often just because it's more of a defense option. However, I would say the Doomskull converting ones are still really good for a lot of game modes. Including Tower of Doom if you want to use it in them. Like you could end up using the yellow one this time around for some pretty good value. Anyways, let's go and now into all the other things we have going on this week. So this Tuesday, we're going to be having the Stonesong Aerie faction. This is a pretty good one, has a lot of good troops, most notably Harpy Mage, though the Legendary is actually really good as well. Of course, you can get these troops at any point, however, you can do the faction event for it that day as well. Of course, now with potions on the new effects in Underworld, you can now do any faction pretty much whenever you want. However, it is available tomorrow as well, either for the loot or if you want to do 500 pure faction. Wednesday, we're going to be in the Strix Pet. This one's been out for a while, so nothing too special there. Thursday, Stormcaller Hero Class. Stormcaller Hero Class is a really good hero class that theoretically became worse as of today. It wasn't changed in any way. It's still just as strong as it's always been. However, there is now an alternative way to do Perpetual Yellowstorm, and the main gimmick of why you would ever even put Stormcaller on your team was for Perpetual Yellowstorm. So now there are a few niche situations where it will be more viable to just run the Legendary instead of running Stormcaller. While it'll still be viable to run Stormcaller most of the time, you will potentially want a different hero class in a specific team, and now you can do that. You are no longer forced to have to use Stormcaller if you want Perpetual Yellow. And this Friday, of course, is a Vault weekend, so no new content comes in, but best time to be farming ever in the game. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, if you want to go on the Explore grind, PvP grind, pretty much any grind, but though Explore ends up going the quickest. Great time to be farming, as you'll be able to get a ton of resources, everything from gems, gem keys, event keys, diamonds, vault keys, epic vault keys, which helps you get those vault troops as well, like all the tarot cards and stuff. But anyways, so yeah, great time to be farming this weekend. Aside from that, as far as the troops that we have available in Soulforge, oddly enough, Phoenicia is both in the event key drop table and in Soulforge this week. Really good, highest AoE single cast damage in the entire game. Really great for running dailies. Has a really good kill range that ends up doing it for. There's a specific kill range between like the super high teams and like the low like Rowan teams, where she ends up working really well. Things like pet battles, doing daily adventure board, doing dungeons, stuff like that. All really good locations for her damage viability, and she has 20% extra stats this week due to the whole Strix and Suncrest thing I believe it's set up to. Anyways, aside from that, Lord of Slaughter, I would still probably consider in top 10. The mythic that we got last Friday that's still available right now for next 4 days in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest drop table, slightly made Lord of Slaughter worse. Not in that, you know, it got any worse, but just that it kind of does what Lord of Slaughter does, but across your entire team instead of all in one troop. Lord of Slaughter is still insanely good. A lot of Doom Skull convert, a lot of damage. Even has that extra Death Mark potential. Only troop in the entire game with that 100% chance to ignore skulls, which in itself is already pretty big. However, due to his higher mana cost, he has a bit of a struggle getting going in comparison, because the only thing only has a 22 mana cost, and this thing is going to be having a 27, and not to mention the other thing that has a 22, you're normally going to be half mana starting it in most team compositions that you're doing, so it really only has 11 mana cost. Lord of Slaughter comparatively is just a little bit of a slower start. Once it gets going, it's just as devastating, but it does take a little bit longer to get Lord of Slaughter to the point where it starts doing something similar. So yeah, it's still really viable. But comparatively, if you already got the Mythic from last Friday, it's definitely a bit lower priority to get him now. Still really good, but definitely a little bit lower. Kind of like how Stormcaller class is, where it didn't get changed at all, but now there's another alternative that isn't necessarily better, but, you know, still does something very similar, and in some situations can be considered better. And that's pretty much everything worth crafting this week in that regard. Next, we have... okay, so this was something that happened... oh, wait, never mind. Sorry, that was the wrong one. That was the Doom weapon. Hold up, I thought it was that one, the weapons. However, do keep an eye out on the epic weapons. We did have a weird situation last week where we were supposed to get a weapon on that Monday, and it didn't end up coming around to that Friday, and it was only available for those 3 days. There were 6 weapons added in the 6.3 patch, and they've been kind of rolling around, you know, whenever they come out through the kingdom. So, for example, this one will come out when there's Silverglade, that one will come out when it's Blade Lands, so on and so forth. So these, there were 6 of them that was added, not this one, but the other one was for Pride Lands the other week. But they kind of didn't do it on the Monday. I think going forward, they're going to be still kind of having them out on the Monday, but for whatever reason, it didn't come out until Friday of last week. So hopefully all these, when they do come around, will be on the Monday itself. But do keep an eye out for these, because if you're going full-blown completion, they will be available for every single one of these corresponding Kingdom weeks. So do make sure to get them if you see them around. Aside from that, as far as the crafting is concerned for weapons, I would say there are 2 particularly good ones, which both serve a really similar role. It is Nimbus Bow, and wherever that staff is, where's that red purple staff? Staff of Storms. So these are the main 2 that I would consider getting, with Staff of Storms probably the overall best. The main reason for this is triple finesse into Staff of Storms team. This is still a really viable team that's among one of the cheaper teams you could build pretty viably. It uses Suncrest Hero class into Staff of Storms using triple finesse. It doesn't require that much to function and can be ran for every yellow restriction related thing in the entire game, including if you want to run it for the Tower of Doom if you really want to, but most notably for things like Underworld and stuff like that. However, yeah, this is a really good weapon to hold it down. So if you need something ultra cheap, I don't think I actually mentioned for any of the teams there, but triple finesse into, actually maybe I did for one, but triple finesse into Staff of Storms, really good cheap option to consider for that can be ran for every single yellow restriction related event, so worth considering. So I'd say that's highest priority. Nimbus Bow second highest priority. Everything else here is pretty much if you need it basis on if you would end up getting it or not. Anyways, aside from that, let's go and start getting into a bunch of teams, all of which will be in the description below if you want to go and copy paste any of them. So let's start from the top and go all the way to the Yellow King. So this one is pure yellow for Tower of Doom as far as using this thing. It's using a mana accumulation weapon that gains some mana back through enchant. I believe it also has gain 4 when casting, if it'll show up right here. Yeah, gains 4 when casting and gets enchant, meaning first cast, even if you don't explode any mana for it, which it likely is getting at least something for it, but even if you somehow got 0, it would still give you 6 mana, 2 back for the enchant, as well as 2 for every subsequent turn, and 4 back for the cast. So it's already getting basically half its mana back simply for casting it, and that's not even counting any explosion value that's also getting, meaning you should basically be able to perpetually keep casting it. Wild King is here to do what Wild King does. We have the new Perpetual Yellow Storm to make Wild King more consistent. This will give him more yellow onto the board so that he can keep going. And this could be replaced out for Yavandra for the Uber Doom Skulls if you want to, or something similar. However, this one's going to be using the Bless mechanic of the new troop specifically. So this thing will bless all yellow allies. This thing also has some extra bless on it, and for every bless on your team, you'll end up getting an additional yellow for the spawn. And if you can do at least 11 pretty consistently, it can get quite a bit of its mana back, especially with the fact that you're going to have Yellow Storm perpetually, you're going to have something else that can create yellow, you have a way to board clear, so you should be able to get some pretty decent value from it. And worst comes to worst, it has some okay score reduction, so if somehow your entire team died, which is very unlikely, but let's say it did, it'd probably have so much attack stacked with Wild King as well as an Enrage that it will just be able to hold its own once you get to the end of the battle. But yeah, just kind of like a yellow loop team all in on the new king. Next we have a pretty standard kind of guard team, just Urskia's Shield into Guard's Avatar. For later fights, you'd probably want to put the Harpy Mage behind the Guard's Avatar, but as you get deeper, you'd probably want to put it in front of it, as you need more than one cast. But when you only need one cast, it's actually better to put Harpy Mage behind the Guard's Avatar. So if you're running this, for example, for, let's say, the Tuesday faction event tomorrow, you might want to run it like this, where it's Urskia's Shield, Guard's Avatar, Harpy Mage, and then Sir Quiet and Hadley, or even Harpy Mage all the way in last slot. But for when you're doing longer fights, like when you get to the later parts of Tower of Doom, you're going to want to have it in front of it so that it can do multiple casts to get your mana going. Otherwise, it plays pretty much how you would expect a Guard's Avatar team to play. You use Urskia's Shield on the Guard's Avatar casts off the big armor boost ratio. It's basically Rowain by AoE, and you just get a good poke. And if you need some backup, you use Sir Quiet and Hadley for some skull spam to finish off whatever is left. For the lower range, as I mentioned, you can run Triple Finesse into the Staff of Storms, but I believe I mentioned that for one of these teams? Yeah, right here, which is why I didn't mention it twice. But a lot of these teams have overlap. Most of the things that you can run actually for this yellow event, you can actually run for tomorrow as well for the faction, oddly enough. So I didn't want to put both of them twice. But anyways, as far as a low team for the event, you can just run all into Mang. Once you get to the later fights, you're going to kind of need something that scales. And one of the easiest, most accessible ways to scale in early game is to run Mang with a hero class that barriers on Brown. In this particular instance, I'm using Elementalist to make it even tankier, since it's the most resistant hero class in the game due to the Entangle and everything. Horned Wyvern is here, mostly try to get kills for even more skull spam. This will synergize with the Burning or Clarion. So hey, we finally built a team with it. But this thing is not completely useless. It's just so situational. You're mostly going to be using an early game before while you don't have better skull spam options, most likely. In this particular situation, it kind of works pretty nice for that, because you still get a good skull spam, you still get some damage pressure, you still get the burn, which if you want to, you could even synergize with triple damage burning hero class. So in this case, we go super tanky instead. And Harpy Mage is here to do what Harpy Mage does. Whenever it has enchant, and it basically has a turn 2 empower instead of a turn 1 empower. It has 75% mana start, which brings it to 10. The enchant on turn 1 brings it to 12. The enchant on turn 2 brings it to 14, meaning regardless of where you put it on your team, there's a 100% chance by turn 2, unless they somehow mana drain you on turn 1. But there's a almost 100% chance on turn 2 you will have full mana. Then you cast Harpy Mage and get a bunch of mana. It also does Brown Storm, so you can keep getting Barrier for Barrier on Brown on Elementalist or any similar hero class. And you're good to go. And then you just went off of Mang with everything else is supporting it. Next, this is also a team that you could run for Yellow Tower of Doom if you want. However, you can also run it for the faction event tomorrow, and you can run through the whole thing. It's just triple finesse with the weapon I was mentioning earlier that's currently in Soulforge this week. So yeah, you can just simply get it from Soulforge. Even if you don't have it, you can go get it. And if you were to craft any of those weapons, I would say this is probably highest priority to get this week. That and spending 500 gems for the Doom weapon this week. That's also high priority just to have it. But the other super high priority one, if you're getting something specifically from Soulforge, is Staff of Storms, as it has Resummon, has the extra stats effect to all Strix, and still does the standard amount of exploding that you would expect from an exploding hero weapon. Next we have a weird version of High King Iron Gut. This one does gain more of a benefit if you go down the double High King Iron Gut route. So if you go double High King, like something like this, can end up doing that. But if you only have one High King, this is kind of the setup you would go with. It's mostly a High King Iron Gut Fiendfire. Fiendfire is a pretty noteworthy weapon if you haven't used it much. It is very situational, but it's most noteworthy for High King Iron Gut. Basically, the premise is that it then curses and burns all enemies, with the most noteworthy thing being curse. So you can also use this for triple damage hero class shenanigans. However, it's more so used for its curse, because there are some restrictions where you don't really have necessarily a good curse option, or you might not have availability to a good curse option, and you can actually simply just use this weapon, because in most of those game modes, the weapon that you have is not color restricted. So even though this is a brown-yellow restriction for tomorrow, you can use any color weapon. So we could use this for 4 times curse. This allows Hiking Iron to devour everything. We're using it with Elementalist, so we get a bunch of stats effects, and since they're curse, they'll all land. Harpy doing standard Harpy mana accumulation things, and this could either be a second Hiking Iron or some kind of support damage. In this case, we're using a Bloodwood for extra Entangle to make sure our Hiking Iron does not die, as well as to pressure damage, and then we're good to go. As far as our Pure faction is concerned, we have a Harpy Mage into triple Queen Zachi. Basically, the whole premise with this is you have a 35% chance to summon a Harpy Mage when matching 4 or more gems. You have a Harpy Mage in first slot. Basically, what will happen is you'll do normal Harpy Mage stuff. It'll gain in power on turn 2, basically. You cast Harpy Mage. You then have a billion Queen Zachis. Your Harpy Mage might die, but then you get a billion resummons, because every extra turn you have 3 35% chances to summon one, which, of course, is not a 100% chance. However, it is a very, very, very high chance that 3 35% will end up giving you a Harpy Mage there. Not guaranteed, but super likely. So basically you have an infinite Harpy Mage in first slot, followed by Queen Zachi 3 times over, and she just pressures a bunch of damage. She has a little bit of explosion, full AoE, pretty good troop overall, very situational, but still a really solid legend. Among one of the better for like AoE damage, and yeah. And just gets a bunch of mana accumulation while doing damage. Really great option. Anyways, as far as the Stormcaller class event is concerned, this is just an all-in into a yellow weapon. We're using these things simply just for their air link to give more yellow. We're using the new High Priestess for perpetual yellow, and we're using this with Frost Mage just for the little bit extra damage, and Dawnbringer would be ideal, but if you don't have Dawnbringer, you can do any yellow weapon that hits all enemies. Dawnbringer is just the best choice if you happen to have it laying around. Lastly, I do want to go over one more team here, as I don't want to dedicate a whole video necessarily to it, but I feel like it's noteworthy enough to mention it. So we were messing, of course, with the new Mythic this weekend, and while we already had a team that nearly was this, I did make one single tweak to it, and gosh, did it make a difference. So this team, you might seem kind of similar to the video we covered this Friday on the Mythic. The main difference is we completely ditched Hero and replaced the Mang Hero with Fist of Zorn. Fist of Zorn is pretty relevant because it has yellow to skull convert. I was considering doing this initially, but I ended up going down the Hero route. However, this gets some really, really interesting value. So ideally, we just want to get purple off the starting board, which luckily we did end up getting there. We then start doing normal Wild King shenanigans. We then just simply get to convert, and as you can see, you win in like 10 seconds sometimes. Like, that's what you wanted to do. It is really, really quick. Biggest issue with it is its consistency is a little bit wavering. Obviously, sometimes it wins as quick as it just did. Other times it could take like a minute. Of course, this can affect all teams, but I feel like it has a bit less consistency than Zugov. So if I want like more of a consistent play and not want to think as much, I'll probably go Zugov build. But otherwise, this can get some pretty quick wins. It is a very, very, very solid Explore 12 option to such a degree that I will be swapping into it from time to time. I normally don't switch out of Zugov like ever, but this is the first team that I would really consider that I would bother using other than Zugov. So highly, highly worth considering. And yeah, has a lot of potential. And most of it's easy to get too. The only thing that's hard to get is Wild King, which is still available for the next 4 days in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chess. Highly advise getting it, as I would definitely say he's in the top 10 strongest troops in the entire game, definitively at this point. Like, without a shadow of a doubt. Maybe even top 5. I'm not sure I'd put it much higher than that, but he is very, very, very good. And arguably, I would say the best Explore 12 option that isn't Zugov. If you ignore Zugov exists, like, he's pretty much the best one. Though obviously Zugov exists, so Zugov still more consistent, I feel. But Wild King still really, really solid option and worth considering. Highly advise getting it. You will still be able to get it after this week. However, Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday is your best bet. If you don't happen to get it by then, your best bet is wait till you just save up some diamonds and craft them in Soulforge for 4,000 diamonds. That might be months from now, but you'll still be able to get them in a somewhat timely manner, probably by like September or so, though we don't know exactly when he'll be in Drop Table, of course. We do not know exactly when that'll be. But anyways, guys, that will wrap it up for now. Oh, also, we got War Hordes there. Or I did. Randomly. You can sometimes get War Coins there. But anyways, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. As per usual, every single team that I went over is also in the description below, so you can go and copy and paste any of them. Thank you all so much for watching, as always. Tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as per usual, we will be going over the Tower of Doom. So if you want to see Tower of Doom gameplay and all that stuff, if you're still not familiar with how the game mode works, I will be doing that pretty much to its entirety. We might even go all the way to 25 tonight. We'll see. Because I'm probably going to buy it at tier 6. But which I think is 1,300 something gems. But you get a lot of those forge scrolls along the way. But yeah, we'll be doing that a bunch tonight. I'm not sure if we're finishing all the way, but we're definitely going to get pretty deep and just kind of going over everything with that. So if you're interested in that, we'll be doing that tonight and continue streaming as we do every single night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anyways, guys, catch you guys later. Have a wonderful week and goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.